All right, what's up, guys? Today we're going to be playing some Battlefield 6, and I wanted to talk about why our brains are not meant to take in all of the bad news that we do, especially with the internet being everywhere, your phones being basically an extension of your arm, constantly being updated with news around the world. It's not a good thing, and personally for me, I basically just try to unplug from any news because anytime you do, you're going to inevitably see something bad news. You're going to see stuff about the war in Iran, something about the war in Ukraine, something about the Epstein files, something about something crazy happening in DC, something about some shooting, whatever else, natural disasters, people dying, people not being able to afford groceries, people not being able to afford gas. The list goes on and on. I could literally come up with any example, and it's probably came out on the news as breaking news sometime in the year 2026. And it's only, April 11th. So that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about why it's so bad, why reading bad news all the time is actually not good for you. Maybe. It's very apparent. And if that's the case, just click off, whatever. But I don't think it's something that is immediately, aware to everybody, because I feel like it's just a part of life now with social media, things like Twitter, where, things happen all the time, constantly people are tweeting. As soon as they hear the news, people are tuned into that kind of thing. Post it, it goes viral, everybody's seeing it, and stuff spreads like wildfire there. And it's not just Twitter, it's YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat. You see it everywhere. And it's not even just true stuff. That's bad enough, but then you also have to deal with AI slop, garbage, fake shit about random things. And then you also have to deal with people who are just blatantly lying and spreading misinformation, which also they tend to try to trigger that negative emotion, that negative visceral response where you're like, what the hell did I just see? You know what I mean? But first of all, way back in the day, let's just go back, 100 years. It's really not that long ago. It sounds like a long time ago, but it's not. News was almost localized. If you wanted to actually tune in and listen to what was going on in the world, you either had to read about it in the newspaper a few days later, once people were made aware of it, or probably had to listen to it on the radio, which you had to be in a specific area of your home, tune into the radio to that station. It's not like that today. Literally, you could just be strolling around. You could be working. You could be at the gym. You could be hanging out with your wife, your husband, your kid, your dog, your cat, whatever else. And you just get a buzz on your phone, look at it, and it's, oh yeah, somebody just did something crazy halfway across the country. It's a little bit different now. You wouldn't hear about that kind of thing for days, and that's if you did at all. You might hear about it in your local news or your local newspaper if it happened close by, but other than that, how the hell else are you going to even know? And I'm not saying just not being aware of things is the best way, but that's how it was back in the day. You worried about much closer to your own circle than we do now. Because almost now everything is you have a connection with people across the world that you don't even know, you've never met. You might not even know their real name. And you're feeling for them, which isn't a bad thing. You should feel for all the people of the world. And I truly believe that, because that's what the Bible tells us to do. Love our neighbors. And by extension, everyone's our neighbors now. That's the truth. And that's fine. But however, we're feeling the negative motion of the entire world at any given moment. If we get that notification on our phone, we look at it, and we feel for those people, and it gives us that response of negativity. It gives us that response of fight or flight, especially if it's politically motivated and it tugs at those strings in your head. Or if it's some tragedy happened, you feel for those victims, you feel anger towards the person who did it. But that's not good for you. It's a helpful response because that's how I'm assuming humans were wired that way. So if something happened when you were in your village way back in the day, something happened in your village, somebody popped out and was trying to attack you guys, you want to know about it, and you got to prepare yourself to deal with it or run, fight or flight. And you're feeling that all day, every day now. And it's not actually helpful because it's not an immediate threat to you. This shit's right as you wake up. You're sleeping, you're peaceful, you wake up, roll over, immediately grab your phone, open it up to find out the crazy stuff that happened while you were asleep halfway across the world. For me, that might be what happened in the Middle East. Wake up, oh my gosh, that's crazy. And then you start thinking about it, and then you're like, oh man, I need to know more. You start digging into it more, and you're just like, all of a sudden, you basically, your mind might not even know the difference between you being in bed, scrolling on your phone with crusty eyes versus actually being in the action, which I don't know. I'm not a scientist when it comes to this kind of thing. I don't know what scientific evidence there is to support my argument, and that's fine, but that weighs on me. That type of thing weighs on me. And it came really apparent personally when everything happened with the Charlie Kirk situation. I was like, I can't believe that happened. And I'm not trying to make any kind of statement on that, but I couldn't believe it happened, first of all. And then I started feeling for him, feeling for his family. And as a human, yeah, you got to feel for that person, I think. But like that in no way impacted my day-to-day life, but it felt so heavy on me for days, weeks on end. And you could feel that. I'm sure I'm not the only one. Like I've seen people, I've talked to people that the same way. And like the people who unfortunately were like celebrating that kind of thing, like I couldn't imagine just thinking about that all day, because it was obviously huge news and everybody was talking about it at the time. But could you imagine that in your head, just bouncing around your skull for days on end? That's how it was for me. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I couldn't stop looking up information on it. I wanted to know exactly what was going on with the investigation into everything, which that didn't provide much detail, and it still hasn't, unfortunately. And that was what, over half a year ago. But anyways, the whole point of this is like, you're so tuned into everything bad happening, and it's not good for you. And I don't even know that it would be good for you if it was only good news coming through, because again, like, it's triggering that response in your brain that something's good happening or something's bad happening, but it actually doesn't apply to you. Does that make sense? Like, good news, 1,000 people trapped in a town, like with some natural disaster, they were saved, nobody passed away. That's great news, and that's a blessing for those people. But like, you don't know them, you'll never know them, they'll never know you, and you heard about it. And that does something in your brain, like that triggers some kind of emotional response in your brain, or neurological pathway that something good happened, but it didn't actually happen to you, and it didn't happen to anybody or anybody you love, or anybody you'll ever even meet. On the flip side, same thing when something bad happens. You'll probably never meet those people. They'll never meet you. They don't know you. You don't know them. It's like you're tuned in to 8 billion people at once. And I don't know about you, but I have trouble managing my personal friendships with the 10 dudes that I'm boys with. I have trouble meeting up with them once a year to hang out, go have a drink, whatever, like talk shop, talk ball, whatever it is. And through your phone, through the internet, you're tuned into 8 billion people. You can't manage that. It's like overload in your brain. When it comes to the news, like, they're just trying to trigger those emotions. It's not even like the news itself is necessarily what's doing it. It's the people writing it that know they need the clicks to get the money, and to get the clicks, they got to trigger some kind of emotional response. And unfortunately, the strongest emotional response is negativity. Anger, outrage, sadness. That's the type of thing that gets clicks. And so that's the type of thing that gets reported. Another one that recently came up was like unfortunately, the newscaster whose mom was kidnapped. People were really tuned into that. And obviously it's a tragedy. It's terrible. And you got to feel for those people. But people were just tuned into that, man. They got to see an update every single night, and they're talking about it. And it's at a certain point, when you're that tuned into something, it starts to affect you, like physically, emotionally, and neurologically. And again, I'm not a scientist. Maybe it doesn't. But for me, it feels like it does when I'm that tuned into something. And I feel like it's a human nature kind of thing where, like, you have the urge to know those type of things because, like I said back in the day, you needed to be ready to fight or flight. But you're getting that response over and over again. And it's like raising your adrenaline levels, which can't be good for you because it's not like, there's no threat. There's no threat to you. And now, obviously, for the people that experienced that negative event. There is. But for the 7.9999 billion other people who didn't experience that event, they're also feeling that same emotional trigger. So I've been yapping, but here's what I've done to personally try to avoid this. And like I said, even recently, it's happened to me with the Charlie Kirk thing, with the woman who was kidnapped of the news anchor's mom. I try to separate what I read when those things pops up, because you can try to avoid the news. I do try to avoid the news because everything's breaking and I just can't handle it. I have a wife and child and a house. I need to focus on making sure my house stays intact. I need to focus on making sure all our bills are paid. I need to focus on making sure that my wife and baby boy feel loved and cared for. I can't be focused on everything that's happening in our political landscape and wars and all this other garbage that we hear about all the time. So you got to try to separate yourself from the news and realize you can view that, but you have to try to internalize that this is not happening to you, and you don't have to be outraged. You don't have to have an opinion on it. You can hear about it and move on with your life. Now, maybe that sounds cold or I'm naive, and if that's the case, that's fine. I'd rather be naive than try to be tuned into all of this crap and not be able to think about anything else that is happening in my own life, because ultimately that's what you can control, is what's happening in your own life, and you can't even control 90% of that. You can't control 90% of the things that happen in your life, maybe even more than that. So focus on what you can control. Focus on yourself, focus on your family, focus on your friends and your loved ones. Focus on what you can control, as that's how you respond to things. And so that's ultimately the message of this video. Focus on how you can respond when you hear that type of thing. And hopefully this makes sense. You don't have to be on YouTube, see a video or a short that outrages you, leave a comment. Just let it go, man. Scroll to the next one. Hopefully you're not just doom scrolling. That's part of the problem, which I can touch on that in another video if anybody's interested, because I definitely have a problem with that. I'm going to yap again, but I've avoided other apps like Instagram, TikTok. I try to stay off Snapchat as much as possible unless I'm chatting with somebody, but YouTube, I can't ditch it. I am addicted fully to YouTube. I'm watching it all the time. And shorts were probably the worst thing to happen to that, because it just sucks me in even more, which great for them, not great for my mental, not great for the domium, if you will. But I'll touch on that in another video if anybody's interested. But yeah, that's all I wanted to chat about. Hopefully that all made sense. Hopefully I covered everything I wanted to cover. But if you enjoyed it, check out the video at the end of this. I think you'll like it as well.